Okay, we're into part two of 1984. Part two, like I said before, is really much more into the plot and much less about the environment and the setting and all that. There's a few discussion points, a few things you can compare to our world, but you see a lot less of that, I think, in this part. It's much more to kind of draw you in, get you emotionally involved in the characters, because you probably aren't at this point. Winston is not that much of a hero. He's not that much of a person that you probably care all that much about, except for the fact that he's fighting the man, right? So now I think Orwell is trying to get us hooked before we get to part three. Um, so what I'll be talking about a lot in this part, in the next couple of videos, is just kind of the plot, and there might be a few things to talk about, but it's mostly just kind of what happens. Um, so bear with that. All right, so we're gonna get through 2.2 to 2.5. It's book two, chapters 1 through 5. All right, we're back with the girl with the dark hair. We get right into it. She is wearing a cast. She has a little bit of a fall. Winston helps her up, and all of a sudden she slips him a note, right? Uh, it says, I love you. And that actually, I think, is interesting because he becomes absolutely obsessed. I mean, he burns the note, but this is interesting because for a long time he like hated her actively, just had all kinds of horrible thoughts about her, hated everything about her. And it's completely flipped, like boom, uh that's interesting. Why is he so trusting at this point? Is he so hungry for any kind of connection or emotion that he would be willing to risk everything, or does it just make him forget everything that he thought about her? He thought she was the thought police, but he doesn't seem to care that much. I mean, he mentions it. He's like, "Oh, she might be thought police," but just cannot get her out of his mind. So tries to find a way to meet her. It takes a while, right? And I think this is just to show how dangerous the situation is to even get near someone. Like he's at the canteen, he has a chance, but somebody calls him. He's about to sit down right next to her, but then somebody calls him over, and he's like, "I can't risk it. If somebody sees me being called over by somebody else and I go sit down with the girl when there's an empty seat next to her, it's too suspicious. They'll figure it out and kill us both. So it really shows just how crazy this situation is. Finally, but he's so desperate, he's willing to trip a guy. This guy is about to sit down with her like the next day, trips him, shatters his glass, and then Winston sits down. That's drawing a lot of attention, but to them, but it works. And so, it shows how desperate he is to get with her. So then she says, meet me at Victory Square. They meet up. Um, she gives him directions, to the countryside. And there's one other thing that's interesting, I think, that happens in this chapter is that at the very end, the crowd is just all condensed. They're pushed together. They're trying to get away from each other. But everyone's crowding in to see the Mongolian prisoners being brought by. Um, and, they're completely crunched together. And she grabs his hand. And, it talks about, but that just tiny bit of touch is so emotional and so like um it seems to mean so much in this dark drab gray world, um that it shows just how much emotion and passion has been drained from this world. The fact that just touching hands, and he talks about how he just in those 10 seconds when he's grabbing her hand, he like has memorized everything about her hand, every crevice, like it's romantic. That's about as romantic as things can get in this world of 1984. So I think that's a very significant section. That's pretty much it for 2.2. Wow, is this going to be a quick video? Maybe. I mean, 2.1. So the two meet up, and the plot gets right into it. Like, let's get to business because these two get to business in the countryside, as you know. Um, they go to extreme lengths to be alone. They're way out. There's this crazy amount of directions where he has to trade trains and go all these places. And the only reason the countryside is supposed to be safe is because there's no like microphones out there. There's no bugs. There's no cameras. The undergrowth is so low you can tell that there's nothing in there. Um, so it shows, what they have to do to be alone. Okay, so finally we know that her name is Julia. Hey, we've got a name, and I think this actually makes sense because up to this point, Vincent's hated her. She's a faceless person. We generally hate people that we don't know, right? That are faceless. That those people. She's one of them, right? Very typical. But as soon as he gets to know her, falls in love, all this kind of, now she's Julia. People that we know, we're connected to them by name, that kind of thing. So I think that was an interesting point. No, they can't do it, at least for a few minutes. I think that's an interesting point too. The fact that Winston is unable to perform at first, no matter how obsessed and just absolutely craving he is for this activity, he can't do it because he's been so damaged. His emotions have been so damaged. His body's been so damaged by the party that something he longs for so much is like impossible for him to do. And then, there's the sex, but it's really described more as a political act. It talks about how she rips her clothes off, just like in the dream that he had. And the act of doing that, of having passion, of being connected with another human, that's the important part. It's not really the sex itself. Like, it's fine. But so that was pretty interesting that they really played it that way. And because of the way the world is in 1984, the book, Winston has no problem that she's had sex with tons and tons and tons of guys. In fact, he likes it because every act that she's done with another man is an act against the Brotherhood. He has so much hatred against what the Big Brother, sorry, what is my brain working today? What Big Brother has done to everyone and how much, they've controlled them, that, anything against that is great, even though it's, this woman he really likes. So that's interesting. And it plays such a huge role. And, there's so much description and kind of scenes that are a little bit, uncomfortable to read, as a school book because of the sex in it, because it's such a big part of what Big Brother does. They have to control it because that's the most passionate thing there is, and they can't have that. It can't exist. Passion, emotions, connections, that's what makes us human, and that's what Big Brother wants to destroy. So that's why it's, I think, such a big part of the book. Is that it? Wow. 2.3. Okay, enough of sex. We're definitely not gonna. Oh, it's back. Okay, so it goes into a little bit in chapter 2.3. I think there's some symbolism here. I think this is interesting. So for one, they never go back to that spot. It's like the ideal spot in every way. It's totally private. It's beautiful. It's secluded and all this, but it's kind of a fantasy. It's kind of, not possible. Yeah, okay, it happened once, but it's so rare. I think that's what that people can have a moment like that, in that spot. Instead, they have sex in an abandoned church. Okay, that's interesting for like 10 different reasons. For one, it's abandoned, and I believe they've already talked about in the book so far, how religion, they certainly, the party doesn't want people to be religious. So, the churches are abandoned, the ruins, it's all in ruins. I think that's symbolic of the whole of religion just being ruined, because if people get really passionate about religion, and if they're passionate about religion, that's taken away from their passion to Big Brother, right? And they don't want people to be passionate about anything, whether it's another person or a group or religious organization. So, but in the fact that they can have sex in there, now it's just a place to do these corrupt things. This is such a corrupt act, for someone to go have sex in the church. But that just shows how little the church matters, right? And how important this connection is for these two. And then the other one that I think is a little bit symbolic is when they sneak in a kiss after the explosion. One, again, they have to go to such extremes to even get a kiss. This isn't even sex. This is like just barely a little peck. It's so dangerous for them. They barely, like, sometimes they can like randomly meet up together, walk a few yards, and then separate. Um, but they barely even get to see each other. That's how controlling the whole place is. But then, of course, this is fireworks, right? It's a little bit of a metaphor, I guess, symbolism of, you know, the explosion is like how hot their passion is for each other. I don't know. Hey, do I read into things too much? Sure. And then finally, also related to sex, it does talk about how, Julia worked for Pornosec, is what it's called. It was basically these pornography written by girls, and it's for young proles, which is really interesting. Like, well, one, they don't really care about the proles, so they will allow them to take part in all these, inappropriate. Like, they care less. They don't. They're not going to rebel. We don't have to worry about them. Let them do all the worst possible things, the things that we control so much with, uh, the people, in the middle here. We control that. We don't want them to do anything, um, but yet these proles, we care less, right? Okay. So then there's a little bit, this comes back in the next chapter, but in this chapter, there's a little bit of Julia's philosophy, her purpose in life, to just enjoy the little things that she can. And so that's why she kind of makes it look like she's so loyal to the party. Um, she follows all those rules, these little things. She goes through the 2 minutes of hate, and she works hard, and she has extra things that she does for the party just so she could break big rules like being with Winston for, here and there. So that's interesting. This quote, I think, is important. It comes up later, but Winston says, "We are the dead." And she's like, "We're not dead yet. Aren't you enjoying life?" And he's like, "Ah, I mean, we're living, but are we really living? We're pretty much dead anyway. If we can't." That's why Winston's so passionate about taking over. He doesn't want to live like this. Julia can live with it. She's like, it's fine. Like, I can still get away with things enough to where I can enjoy life. He's like, no, if they control us that much, it can't be a real life. So that's an interesting question. That's something you could probably write an essay about. Uh, you know, are you are citizens, are people today willing to put up with so much horrible things because they have just enough to enjoy life? Are we not quite at the point where we're going to rebel because there's so many horrible things happening? I don't know. You tell me. Okay, so then two chapters left. 2.4. They rent a room above Mr. Charrington's shop. That's where he got the paperweight, right? The razors. But I think it's interesting to know that it's emotions, which, remember, he's not supposed to have any emotions. He's not supposed to show emotions. It's dangerous. But that's what caused him to rent the room. Um, Remember, Mr. Charrington showed him that room. So he goes and asks him, "Hey, can I rent the room?" He's like, "Sure." This is insanely dangerous. They got cameras everywhere. They see two people going in the same room for long periods of time. Oh, man. They can get killed for this. They even say is lunacy, right? But he's so angry that she cancels and he can't be with her. He's so obsessed with her. She's absolutely a necessity now. That's why the party didn't, want to allow relationships, because this is what happens. You start breaking more rules. You start being more dangerous. You start doing things you wouldn't normally do, right? Uh, but it's interesting. You got to be careful letting your emotions, take over. And then there is a little bit of information about the stuff that Julia brings in. I think it's interesting because, like, look at what she brings in: bread, coffee, milk, sugar, and makeup that she wears. These are like basic things. These are not luxuries by any means, right? Um, and yet this stuff is like, this is amazing, right? So if this stuff is the luxury, man, they must live horribly, right? It is important to know that Winston hates rats. That's going to come up later. And then as far as oranges and lemons rhyme, I don't want to give away too much. I will say that. So it's an old nursery rhyme that English people, and this is a book written by an English person, would be very familiar with. And I really don't want to give away too much. But what the heck? I mean, is anybody reading anyway? So it's a game that English kids used to play where it's kind of like London Bridges, right? And you put your arms up and then the kids go underneath and then you trap them and they go through two at a time. I've probably already said too much. The last line is something about coming to chop off your head. I mean, that's not foreshadowing at all. Okay, last chapter. Sim vanished. He's been vaporized, right? Or at least he's disappeared. And I think this is quite significant because Winston was wrong. And he said, oh no, he was oh, he was right. Sorry. I'm getting things mixed up. Oh, am I gonna have to edit this part out? That takes so much time. Okay, I'm not gonna edit this out. I'm gonna put in something on the play pause that you won't even notice that. So Winston was right. I should change that to was right. He was disappeared because he's too smart, right? Okay, sorry. There's somebody else he's wrong about, but I've said too much. Okay, so they're getting ready for Hate Week. That 2 minutes of hate. Now they have a whole week dedicated to it. It's pretty interesting when it happens. So get ready for that. And then talking to the proles. Isn't that whoa? I didn't take that out. That was from man. This is a horror. Who's your teacher? This guy? Who is this guy? Okay, Julia. Now we already mentioned this in the last chapter, but it goes into a little more detail about the different philosophies. Right? Winston wants to take down the system. He's tired of the whole thing. Julia could really care less about, I have proof, Aronson, Rutherford, all this stuff. She's like, who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's not going to matter. You can't use it to take down the party because it's not possible to take down the party. She generally believes things that nobody would ever believe, like they invented airplanes. But she knows that some stuff's not true, but she doesn't care. She's not interested in the big government stuff. This is something you can certainly write about. Is this true today? Are the majority of people just kind of vaguely aware of that? Yeah, government's doing some horrible things, or the big, businesses are doing horrible things, or I don't know, maybe you think none of them are doing horrible things. But either way, do most people kind of just know generally that there's bad things happening, but just don't care? And just kind of, but look, I got my internet, I got my computer, I got my social media. I got Netflix. As long as I got my Netflix, let the other stuff happen. Other people are suffering, whatever. Who cares, right? That's Juliet. Are there a lot of people kind of like that, right? And using the excuse that, well, there's nothing we can do anyway. Like, what do you want me to do? I can't do anything. You want me to take down the, I don't know, pharmacy companies and the what is it, the insurance company, all these ruthless, all the, they're letting people die, nobody cares, they don't care about anyone. What do you want me to do? Right? That's kind of her excuse. And so Winston says she rebels, from the waist down. It's all you care about is just to give yourself pleasure. Right? So it's not really rebelling, it's not really fighting the system, right? So that's whereas Winston actually wants to take down the system. He wants to find the Brotherhood. He wants to go after it, right? So that's kind of interesting. All right. I think that one was shorter. No? Maybe? Okay, well, hang in there. We got a couple of weeks left, seniors. And for you, remember, all you have is these play pauses. Just get them done, answer the questions correctly. Your grade will probably remain about the same. If you're, a little borderline, you want to bump up, write that essay, right? You want to go to the next grade. And if you need help with that, let me know. I'll put a video out there going into the essay in more detail. You got several weeks to get it done, so I don't think you need to worry about that too much right now. Get your other classes done, right? This is trying to take it easy on you. So, all right. Thanks for watching.